All right, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central office hours. My name is John Mueller. I'm a Webmaster Trends Analyst here at Google in Switzerland. And part of what I do is talk with webmasters and publishers like the ones here in the Hangouts. As always, I'd like to give those of you a chance who haven't been in these regularly to jump in and ask the first couple of questions. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to unmute and ask away.
Oh, oh, sorry,
Go
is
for it.
someone else speaking?
Go for it, Daniel.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my question is about meta descriptions in mobile specifically. I reached out to you and we were messaging a little bit back and forth. My robots.txt on the sites that I manage, I have it on 2 sites now. The robots.txt are set up correctly. They were incorrectly set for about a day, and I had the meta descriptions fall off on mobile and desktop. Then when I repaired it really quick, I did a fetch and render, and it fixed it on desktop, but I'm still having the same issue on mobile. And I've recently realized that on mobile, with YouTube, YouTube is having the same issue with meta descriptions. I don't know if theirs is caused by a different reason, but their meta descriptions are also not populating on mobile. So I don't know if there's maybe some kind of bug or something like that, if it's a known issue.
So what do you see in search then? Does it say blocked by robots text, or is it just empty?
It says it's blocked by robots text, but there's no block on it.
OK, and it's only doing that on mobile?
Only on mobile. It's really strange.
OK. That seems like something we should be doing better. So in general, if you use the fetch and render feature in Search Console and then submit to indexing, that should push it to essentially our indexing pipeline where we update that. I assume what's happening here is we're just trying to pick it up separately for desktop and mobile, and we're not checking the mobile page as frequently as we would check the desktop page. So that's something that should catch up automatically, but it sounds like it's something that we could be doing a better job at. I don't know, did you send me the example URLs as well?
I can send you the example URLs. One of the websites is like it's a larger website, so it's getting indexed a lot. And I would assume that it's pretty highly trafficked and should be updated. Do you want me to, should I send it to you in a private chat?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. Then
Thank
you
you.
can take a look at that.
If you just if you Google on your phone like in and out commercial for YouTube, the YouTube meta description won't show up either. So I don't know if this is a larger issue, but I've been realizing it more and more since I've been paying attention to it.
OK. So where do you see that on YouTube?
If you just in Google, I can send you a screen. Can I put a screenshot in this share?
Sure.
Okay.
Probably the link to screenshot, yeah. Or maybe you can just send that to me as well. So that's within YouTube, or that's when you search and you see the video results?
When you see the video results in Google.
Okay.
So you'll Google like in and out commercial as an example. It's a hamburger place in California. And the title will populate, but the meta description will not populate. They're getting the same. It's not being shown because of an error with robots.txt.
OK. All right. I can take a look at that. That seems like something that we could do a better job at. Sometimes it's tricky because we don't want to cause issues on websites. So if we think we have the content, we'll try not to recrawl everything so frequently. But especially if you're using the submit to index feature, that seems like something we should be able to pick up on for both desktop and mobile.
Yeah, I've submitted it multiple times over the last month, and it's a little weird. I'll definitely send a message to you.
OK, perfect.
Sweet. Thanks, John.
All right, someone else wanted to pop in with a question.
Hi, John.
Oh, sorry. All right.
Ladies first.
All right, thank you. Don't worry, I've only got a couple of quick questions, then I'm off. So I'll leave space for somebody else shortly. So is it all right if I ask? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Right. So just a quick question about migrations. So say you've got a huge website and you're doing a migration from, say it's not a HTTP to HTTPS, switch to an SSL. It's just you're just migrating to a new domain or a .net instead of a .com, etc. Yeah. Or you've reskinned your website and you've got a whole new design going forward. So when Googlebot hits the URLs on the website, if it's, say, a huge e-commerce site that typically may have, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 URLs, does scheduling, crawl scheduling, does that still have a part to play when Googlebot discovers all these new URLs? So effectively taking into consideration the past, if you like, importance, change, etc., of the URLs that it's migrating from. Will it still have a, it's not going to crawl everything there and then, is it? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, we can't just crawl alphabetically or crawl them all at once. I think that would probably cause more problems than it would really help.
So would it kind of make sense then to say that we know that there's this scheduling system, the tiered system, yeah. I think Gary's mentioned it actually in a recent interview with Eric, yeah, and it's in all the patents. So, and there's 3 that you always talk about. So some URLs are crawled multiple times a day, some maybe every other day, and some very infrequently, yeah. So would it be sensible then to say that when a migration is underway, that rule will still apply based on the history of the URLs that are being migrated from?
Sure, yeah.
Right. Okay. So scheduling will have an impact as such.
Yeah. I mean, we try to find the most efficient way to crawl a website. So that's essentially what you're looking at there. And even with migrations, we can't just crawl everything because most websites are pretty big if you try to crawl everything. So we kind of have to do that in an efficient way.
So when you say when you said historically, well, we try and find all the important things to try and bring those back up, they obviously take priority.
Usually, yeah. I mean, those are the ones that will crawl more often. I mean, important is really hard to define there, but if we think that pages are important, pages are changing frequently, then that's something we'd probably pick up on and try to recrawl more frequently.
But not all change. Is this statement true? Sorry, I will be going shortly. Right, is this statement true? In a migration, everything changed, but not everything that changed is necessarily important change. Yeah? So obviously everything's changed because you've moved a whole site. Yeah. But say you've got an e-commerce site and there's a lot of sections with thin pages that you're migrating across. They may change frequently because obviously they have lots of things like related content and various this, that, and the other, and randomization and shuffling, yeah. But that's not necessarily important change, is it?
Probably less, yeah. It's hard to look at it so theoretically. But yeah, I mean, it's something we try to pick up on and figure out how we can recognize this change in an efficient way.
Okay.
So
but definitely some change is not seen as important, really, compared with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, people see this when you move from one domain to another. You can do a site query and still see the old content for months later because those are things that probably we aren't recrawling that frequently.
Because they're not that important necessarily, maybe.
Usually, for some measure of importance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's my questions actually. So I'm actually on holiday in Croatia, so I'm off.
All right.
Have a
stop working.
Yeah. So I've got a pool to go and lie by. Okay. So bye all. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice vacation. Sorry. I would have a little question here.
All
on
right.
the subject of redirections from one domain to another, or just a few URLs to a few other URLs, 301 redirections to be precise. I've noticed lately that there are more and more cases where the old domain remains indexed, pretty much intact, while the new one also is indexed, despite the existence of those 301 redirections. And when you check the web cache of URLs from the old domain, you will see the URL of the new domain. It seems to be a new thing now, because we used to kind of look at it, okay, when the old ones drop out and they go into the new one, then you know that it's all working. And now it's all there, both ways.
Yeah, I mean, we try to recognize what you're searching for and bring you what you're trying to find. So
But
our systems are
talking about a
essentially
site,
they're
just a
trying to
site
help
query.
you.
Just
Yeah,
a site query.
I mean they're trying to help you. They're saying, well, we know these URLs used to exist and they belong to the other one now, but you're explicitly asking for those, therefore we'll show them to you. So it's kind of
So
like,
there it goes. One way of telling when the transfer is underway and it's getting more complete. It's being trumped by this helpfulness that maybe we don't really want.
What you can do is use Search Console, though. You can look at the index stats in Search Console.
Yeah, but you know those are.
You'll see those going down, the other ones going up. I mean, there's obviously a delay. Also, the sitemap index count is something that's updated daily. So if you have a sitemap file for those URLs, you'll see them going down, the other ones going up.
You normally no longer have them from the old domain when you migrate. You won't bother with a sitemap there.
Well, if you have a sitemap for the old URLs and you set the last modification date to the date when you set up the redirects, that helps us to recognize those redirects faster, too. Because then we see, oh, these pages that haven't been changed for years suddenly have a new date. Therefore, we need to take a look. We'll take a look and then see the redirect.
Hey, can you ask a spammy question?
Spammy questions.
Yeah, I wish you were your I love spam or I eat spam for breakfast, because this is kind of annoying, and I'm sure a lot of SEOs from around the world are going through this. So I wanted to know, what is your take on XYZ spam? Because it's on the rise, and it's not just me, and I'm in private circles where I talk to webmasters that deal with, like, billion-dollar businesses, and they're going through some insane spammy. Just looking over their links through Search Console, and every day is just like 100, and then the next day would be 50, and the next day 1,000 of XYZ spam. So what is Google doing to take action on this? Because it's very serious, and it's. I mean, should I just? I mean, even going through. My question is it okay to block a top-level domain in your robots.txt file, and would that affect your ranking?
So these are links from sites that are hosted on the XYZ TLD. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then also I tried to email the XYZ people, and then I haven't heard back, and it's been more than 72 hours. So that's suspicious. You email any other. No, I'm serious, because you email any other company.
I mean, if it's a TLD, then that's.
If you email an abuse team, you should get a response back saying, "Hey, we received your, your whatever. We'll get back to you." But it's really serious, though, John.
So you can't block them in your robots text file, because that's a different site. The robots text file only affects your site and the crawling there. But what you could do is theoretically put them in a disavow file. So you could say domain:XYZ. And as far as I know, that would handle the whole TLD. I don't think that's a good idea, though, because that's a really big hammer. That's not something that's easily recognizable that what you're doing there, because it might be that there are legitimate sites that are hosted there as well. So that's something I personally not really recommend from the start.
Well, I have a Guru guy that checks stuff with me as well online, and we find some crazy stuff, and we went actually over the entire internet looking for the top XYZ websites, and there aren't solid ones. So if
There
you
are no
can,
good ones. Okay. That sounds pretty harsh, and I hope the people running the TLD aren't listening,
well, I'm upset because it's by
or
the
that they take action and kind of clean that up. So from our point of view, these are probably things that we're ignoring anyway. So I imagine they're just able to get cheap domains there, and they host, I don't know, whatever weird spammy auto-generated stuff there, and that includes links to legitimate sites. And from
right.
our point of view, that's not really a new spam tactic. That's something we've seen for, I don't know, the past 10 years or longer, where people are hosting spammy content, scraped content with links to legitimate sites, and they think that somehow makes it possible for them to rank.
.xyz and .site and and .online. You guys have seen that for years, but all of a sudden, this just, I guess,
Yeah,
it's
it used to
my,
be.
my backyard.
It used to be, for example, I think .info was like that way in the day, and they've significantly cleaned up, and our algorithms are kind of tuned towards recognizing this kind of spam and just ignoring it. So from my point of view, if you look at those sites and you think, oh, this is just junk, then I would just ignore that. I wouldn't even bother digging into the individual domains and putting them in the disavow file.
You can ignore it because it's there's an anchor text and there's all this stuff, and then you find that these websites are not these websites are not excluded from your search. They're actually in search. So whoa,
Yeah, but just because they're indexed doesn't mean that we're giving them any weight, or those links any weight, or that they would be causing you any problems. So, like from a first order of magnitude, I'd say you can ignore those. Um, if you're really worried about it and you think that all XYZ domains will be bad forever and you'd never want to have anything to do with that, then you could put that in your disavow file. Personally, I'd shy away from that. I think that's a really big hammer that you probably don't really need to use.
I'm just saying, even from a branding perspective, for years to come, and I think that I predict that for the next 10 years, .com will still stay. It's the leader. So I don't see it important. That's
Sure.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There are lots of new TLDs out there,
So
but
just you need to disavow if you're worried, like by the thousands.
that's fine. Put it in the disavow file if you're worried, but personally, I would just ignore it.
Okay.
These spam sites pop up from one day to the next. They're gone in a couple of weeks, and our systems are pretty fine-tuned towards that.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Ramon, I think you have a question.
Thanks. Yeah, hi, John. Ramon from Amsterdam. I have a question. We have a website with reflang tags in it, and there are five ref language tags in it, but one of them doesn't have an alternative for that language. So that page now gets a lot of crawl errors in the Google Search Console. But our developer says he can't disable that language tag for, let's say, for the UK. Is there a solution we can do to solve it other ways, and so it doesn't take any crawl budget, or?
That's probably fine. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
So with the hreflang, what will happen there is only that page will be taken out of that set of pages that are connected there. So it doesn't break the hreflang cluster that you have on for those pages.
No.
And we know about that URL from the hreflang link, so we'll try to crawl it. But if we can't, we can't crawl it. That's no problem.
Okay, but all the crawl errors in Google Search Console is piling up. And I know you need to keep your website tidy and clean.
No, you don't need to fix all the crawl errors.
Okay.
That's I think a misconception that maybe we need to make clear in Search Console as well.
Yeah.
In that these crawl errors are meant to be useful for you if you think there should be content there. So if you think this URL should be working, and we say it's not working when we try it, then you can fix that. But if you say it was never meant to exist, it shouldn't ever exist, then you can say, well, crawl error is the way it should be. It's
Okay.
technically the correct way to handle this.
Okay, so if I have a website with, let's say, 2,000 crawl errors, and I will clean them up, you do say it won't do any really significant good for your rankings or for your website or
I
crawl
don't think
budget?
that would change anything.
Oh.
So I think, especially if those are URLs that shouldn't exist, it
Mhm.
doesn't change anything. If those
Okay.
URLs are supposed to exist, then obviously we can suddenly index them if we can crawl them.
Then
But
it's
they
a
shouldn't
signal for
exist.
me. Yeah.
That's fine.
But also, if they get a link through the href language tag from other websites, that is
fine.
not a signal for you to say, well, guys, you have a
No.
page there. We
No.
crawl it now.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's a technical thing that you have on your
Yeah.
website where you say
Mhm.
this URL doesn't exist, and then we say,
Yeah.
okay, thank you for telling us.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we just list that as crawl errors in Search Console in case you
Yeah.
didn't know about that.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
John, just a follow-up question to this
Okay.
in hreflang. So, John, it means that if I am using 5 hreflang and one is not 200 response code or 404, search engine will still follow all other hreflang except this one only,
Yes.
or it will ignore all of them.
No, it will only ignore that one. So the
That
rest
one.
of the ones in that cluster are fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, let me run through the questions that were submitted. Bunch of questions submitted ahead of time, and people voted on them. So let's see how many we can get through. After changing the geo-target in Search Console, my website visibility significantly dropped. How long will it take to recover? It's hard to say how long it will take to recover, because if you change the geo-targeting, then we change the way we show it in search results. So if you change it from one country to another, then in that country you have set, it will be more visible. In the other country, it will be less visible now. So to some extent, that's a normal change. In the other website, I increased the crawl rate, and after a week, I switched it back to recommended. The traffic dropped. Is this normal? So the traffic, I assume the traffic from the search results, so from users clicking to your site. And crawl rate and the traffic to your site from users is not related. So if you see the traffic dropping, then usually that's not related to the crawl rate. The only time that would be related to the crawl rate is if we can't crawl the important content on your website. So if you're, for example, have a news content and we can't crawl the new content, then we can't show that content in search, and you'll see less people looking for new content coming to your site. But otherwise, you don't artificially need to increase the crawl rate or change the crawl rate to get more traffic in search. If a certain URL with hreflang doesn't exist, but we can't delete this, what to do?
Yeah, sorry, that was my question, John.
Perfect. Perfect. I got voted. So I hope that was a useful answer. Could you elaborate on the importance of keywords these days when it comes to ranking? If Google has gotten so good at understanding what the content on a page means, and Google can figure out the topic, where do keywords fit into SEO? So I assume by keywords you mean the keywords meta tag, and we don't use that at all for search. So that's something you can use for other purposes. I don't know if some ads targeting maybe uses it. But from Google's side, we don't use the keywords meta tag at all.
But John, like the title and the meta, suppose you have, like, let's say 30 duplicates on your website. I really forgot to ask this question from way back. Like, does that affect ranking? Or because I remember there's a video with Matt Cutts that's saying that it doesn't affect ranking.
The title and the meta tag, the meta description, I assume. So this one is about the keyword meta tag, but the description is used for the snippet, and the title is the title and the search result. Or we use it as a guide for that at least. And those are essentially helpful to kind of show your site in search to users, but it doesn't change the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, the keywords are just effective now, the meta tag only for Google News, right?
I don't know what Google News uses. I don't think they use the keywords. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Another aspect from this question might be just generally keywords within text. So do you still have to kind of mention the word that you want to rank for within your content? And to some extent, that's definitely still the case. It's not that you need to mention all alternatives, but if you have one word that you know people are searching for, then I would put that on the page. I would put that somewhere so that search engines know that your page is really about this content, but also so that users, when they come from search, they find what they're looking for. It's not that they're confused, that you're using totally different nomenclature on one part of the site versus what you think people are searching for. This is sometimes particularly visible when it comes to technical terms. So if you're searching for a medical phrase or something like that, but you know users are searching for maybe the more commonly used words, then either make your content focus on the technical words or on the commonly used words and kind of let users find that content that way. Sometimes it makes sense to include both of those as well. Please tell us why some niches are more spammy than others. I don't know. This is almost like a philosophical question. I assume this is kind of goes into like some areas are just more competitive than others, where if it's very lucrative to get traffic from search to one type of website, then probably there are other people out there that are trying to do the same thing. And that sometimes results in people going too far and doing more spammy things. Let's see the rest of the question here. I have a customer that does man and van service, and most sites ranking first page are exact match domains with unnatural links. Is that because Google can't understand what man and van means? I don't know. I'd probably have to take a look at the search results there to see what actually is happening there. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that we use over 200 signals for ranking, for crawling, indexing, and ranking together. So just because one site is ranking high and they're using some kind of spammy technique doesn't mean that they're ranking because of that spammy technique. It might be that they're ranking despite that spammy tactic that's kind of pulling them back. So a lot of our algorithms are set up in a way that they recognize these kind of spammy techniques, and they say, well, I can ignore the spammy part, and I can focus on the good part. So that's something also to keep in mind there. Just because someone else is doing something spammy doesn't mean that they're ranking because of them doing that spammy thing. But as always, if you think that this looks bad, if the search results are bad, you can give us feedback. You can give us feedback directly in the search results with the feedback link on the bottom. The web search team takes those into account and kind of sees what patterns come up there and what we could improve. Or if you recognize that they're doing spammy tactics, then you can use a spam report form that's linked from our help center, where you can let us know explicitly like what you think is wrong with these search results or this individual URL, where you see that person doing spammy things. And someone from the manual web spam team will generally take a look at those and say, well, is this something we manually have to take a look at and handle better, and maybe take manual action on that specific site? Or can they look at that and say, well, the algorithm is already ignoring the bad part, therefore it's just ranking where it normally would be ranking? Site-wide footer navigational links to web pages. Do they pass any link value? Suppose I own 5 sites. All are e-commerce websites, but for different countries. Can I link all 5 websites in the footer navigation, or should I avoid it? Sure. If you have a handful of sites like that, I think that can be really useful for users to kind of be able to find the different variations. On the other hand, if you're setting up doorway sites with each site just like a slight variation of the other one, then probably on the one hand, you don't want to put those links in the footer because that can look really messy. On the other hand, you're probably running into more problems running doorway sites than you would be gaining from any of that. So if you're looking at a handful of sites like this, if they're for different countries, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, John, regarding this only small query was, what means of a handful sites? If I am having 20 or 25 different country domains for my brand, can I add them 50 sites or 30 sites?
I think that kind of is more than a handful. So with a handful, I mean kind of like five, like fingers you have in your hand. Um, what I would do in a case like that where you have so many different country versions is maybe just set up one page that links to all of your country versions so that users can say, well, this is not my country, but I'll go to this country picker page. And from there, you can find your way to the other pages. So that's not something I'd put in the footer. I think that just bloats the pages, doesn't add any value. And it's generally cleaner to have them together.
So a subdomain
So,
can do that, or can a subdomain do that?
Um, it doesn't really matter where you would host like those 20, 30 country versions. It's more a matter of you probably wouldn't want to link them all from the footer because that just gets very messy quickly.
but John, I am already using .com where all the websites are mentioned and it is X default.
Mm-hmm.
So in that scenario, if I am using CCTLD and giving different country version like India or like US, so it's not recommended to connect it from footer.
If you have that many different country versions, like 30, 40 different country versions, I think that would be kind of overdoing it. I mean, from a web
Okay.
spam point of view, it's less an issue because we can still kind of see what's happening there. We have the href links as well. But just from a usability point of view, from kind of text on a page point of view, that probably isn't that useful.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We've been using preferred domain www since launch in 2003. Due to the line marketing activity, the company wants to serve the website without the www version. Will we lose any rankings or visibility by this change? In general, you wouldn't see a big change there if you switch from www to non-www. That's something that we can handle fairly well. You still need to kind of see this as a kind of site migration. So I would definitely go through the migration tips we have in the Help Center with regards to setting up redirects properly, the canonicals, hreflang, all of that to make sure that you have that set up between the different versions. And also, I would double check to make sure that you have them separately in Search Console as well. And finally, if you're doing this change and you're still on HTTP, maybe it makes sense to say, well, we'll take this moment where we have to do a migration anyway and move to HTTPS. So kind of taking the next step already instead of kind of like leaving that for the next year to kind of run through. In one of the past Hangouts, you recommended no indexing, chit-chat, general topic, unanswered forum threads, etc. However, in another Hangout, you said 100,000 pages from a calendar script won't impact the rankings of other high-quality pages. Which one is valid? So in particular, if you have like 100,000 infinite calendar pages, that's something we're pretty good at folding together into one page anyway. So we'll look at these pages. We'll start crawling some of them. We'll notice that this is probably an infinite calendar. We'll stop crawling. So it won't significantly cause issues with regards to crawling. And we'll recognize the content is essentially the same. So we just treat it as one page. So essentially, instead of these 100,000 pages, we're looking at one page where we're saying, well, this is an empty calendar entry. And we just use that one page for indexing. So it would be slightly different from having lots of really low quality content. Is there a problem if I have 25,000 pages and there's a menu item on each of those pages linking to the same page? So 25,000 internal links to one page. Does that impact rankings in any way? That's actually pretty normal. That's something that almost all websites have. Maybe not the 25,000 pages, but all of them having a link to the same individual page. That's essentially like the situation where you have a disclaimer link on the bottom, a link to your homepage, a link to your shipping conditions, your terms of service, all of that. So that's not something I'd see as being unnatural. Definitely not something you need to artificially kind of hold back. That's kind of like a normal web page. How important is it to add meta-language information like HTML tag with language equals en-gb? Does that have any effect on the search results pages? We ignore that completely. The primary reason for that is that we've noticed that people essentially copy and paste boilerplate HTML, and they use language equals en for pretty much all types of languages. So it's not seen as something that's relevant for us. And that goes for the lang attribute in general. So if you use that within divs as well, within the body, we essentially ignore that. The one thing I like to mention to kind of watch out for is if you have foreign language content on your website, then the lang tag is sometimes used by screen readers to kind of handle the pronunciation properly. What could we do to increase the crawl frequency of our pages? Many of my pages are indexed but haven't been crawled in months. New content on the page and page title is not being picked up. What could be the reason for that? So we use a number of factors to determine how we crawl a website. We try to do that in the most efficient way possible. So that means pages that we know are changing very frequently or pages that are kind of important on the website will crawl more frequently, maybe daily, maybe several times a day. And other pages will crawl less frequently, which could be a couple of weeks, could be a couple of months even, if we think that these pages haven't changed at all. Two easy ways you can kind of let us know about freshly changed content. One is to make sure that you link it from the higher level pages. So if you have, for example, an updated item on your website, and that's usually linked fairly low within your website, then linking to that from the main page is a good way to let us know about that. Sometimes you'll have something like news in the sidebar, or you'll have recent changes, those kind of things. That helps us to find those pages faster. Another thing that helps us find those pages faster is a sitemap file. And in the sitemap file, you can give us the last modification date of those pages. We'll compare that with what we found so far, and we'll try to kind of go back and fetch those pages if you tell us that they've changed recently. The one thing I'd caution to watch out for here is increasing the crawl frequency doesn't mean that your website will rank better. It doesn't mean that your website will be more important in Google's eyes. The crawling is essentially a technical thing that's completely separated from the ranking side. So we use crawling to make sure that we have the new and updated content. But once we have that content, it'll rank based on essentially other factors. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't artificially need to increase the crawl rate. The crawl rate isn't something that you should see as an SEO metric. It's essentially a technical metric that tells you how much of your content is being crawled. Obviously, if you have a really big website, then you want to make sure that that new and updated content is crawled frequently enough. So double checking that your crawl rate is kind of in a reasonable range is useful. When it comes to the maximum crawl rate from a website, we look at two main things. One is kind of the server speed. Can the server handle this amount of crawling? And the other is kind of the errors that we get back from the server. So if we crawl 100,000 pages a day from this website, does the server return server errors to us? And if it does, then that's kind of a sign that we're probably crawling a bit too much, and we need to dial that back. So if you have a big website, make sure your server can handle a big load. It's kind of trivial, I guess, when you look at it from that point of view. Should I delete all of the low-quality pages? I have a lot of local business and WordPress tag pages. Are they affecting my rankings? When it comes to low-quality content, if you recognize that it's low-quality content, our primary advice is to make sure that it's not low-quality content and see if you can't improve that content significantly to really make sure that you're providing something really of high quality and valuable to users on your website. So you could work on improving that content. If you say, well, this is content I don't really want to improve at all. I looked at it after a year or two, and I said, oh, what was I thinking by putting these pages online? Maybe that's something you want to kind of prune out and say, in my normal maintenance of my website to keep things clean and maintainable, I'll take these pages out. So that might be another thing that you could do there. How important are backlinks in terms of rankings? Taking over a website that has a lot of low-ranking spammy links can be long and tedious, as a disavow tool seems to take a long time to take effect in Webmaster Tools. So we do use links when it comes to crawling, indexing, and ranking. We do try to take that into account. When it comes to like the lower quality spammy links, a lot of that we'll recognize already on our side and try to discount already. So depending on what you're looking at there, it might be that we've already kind of ignored that. When it comes to like unnatural links that were built by previous SEO or by previous owner, then that's something you probably want to take into the disavow file. Is there some technical issue on the side? I see some chat bubbles popping up.
Yeah, I think you're drunk.
Hmm?
He was saying, am I drunk or do I see John blurry? I don't see you blurry.
OK, that's good. Everyone is drunk except for Baruch. This is a weird party. Just us two, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes the video quality goes up and down. So as long as you can kind of see me and hear me, I'm happy. All right, let's take some more questions here. If we use Adobe Target to inject marketing messaging in banners on our site, Adobe hosts that content externally and blocks search engines. Our non-JavaScript default content doesn't appear when using fetch and render. Instead, we see blank containers. Is this a fetch and render issue? If you don't see your content in fetch and render, and especially if you see it listed as blocked by robots text there, then that's something that might potentially be a problem. For example, that could be if the JavaScript file is blocked from loading, so we aren't able to process the JavaScript file to see the actual content. That might be an issue. Or it could be that the JavaScript is trying to pull in content from a roboted area on your website or on a different website. That might be an issue as well. So this is definitely something I wouldn't ignore. I try to figure out what exactly is happening there, maybe set up a test page using the same scripts, using the same URLs, and see what specifically within your content, within the external content, might be causing this content not to be visible. Because if we can't see it with when we render the page, then chances are we can't take that into account for indexing. One thing you can also do there is to kind of double check that we do see it for indexing somehow, is to search for that text that's invisible in the fetch and render in Google, maybe using quotes to try to explicitly pull up those pages to see if that content is indexable at all. Sometimes it's indexable but just set to invisible, which means we won't see that as a primary content of the page. So that's something that you could tweak to improve. But it wouldn't be as bad as if we can't index that content at all.
Yeah, I've wondered about doing a test too. If you're siphoning off like 2% of the traffic, does it look to Googlebot like you're doing something malicious because you're sending them one way and you're sending the rest of the traffic the other way, just in case they do fall in a test?
Yeah, A/B testing is always a tricky topic. The important part from our side is that you don't treat Googlebot in a special way. So if you do random A/B testing, then Googlebot might fall into that test or might not. And if you do kind of like put your AB versions on separate URLs, then I just make sure that those URLs are crawlable so that when Googlebot ends up in that test area, they're able to crawl that test content. You can have the rel canonical pointing to your preferred URL, so that'll be the one that we try to index. But we need to be able to kind of crawl that so that we recognize that there's actually content there.
OK, that makes sense. And if you're doing it with JavaScript and you're like injecting it into the page, would you say the same thing? Just treat Googlebot the same. Don't put like any strange rules for Googlebot so they always see the current site. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Rel canonical question. Do we need rel canonical if we have properly implemented a 301 redirect? Should I implement both or just one of these two? Good question. So we use both of these signals when it comes to canonicalization. So canonicalization means we have two URLs that we think are probably identical or equivalent, and we want to pick one of them for indexing. And we look at a variety of things when we come to that situation. On the one hand, we have the rel canonical. We have the 301 redirects, which are pretty strong signals that you want this specific URL indexed. On the other hand, there are things like internal links, there's sitemap links, there are external links as well, which also give us some hints on which of these URLs we should prefer for indexing. And ideally, all of these signals combine, and they all point at the same thing. And we say, oh, well, definitely, this is the one that everything points at. We'll pick that one. Sometimes we'll see conflicting signals, where we'll see maybe a rel canonical going here and all the internal links going here. And we kind of have to balance between like rel canonical, all the links here, which one should we be showing? So especially for situations like that, having a second signal that tells us, well, this is really the one that you want, that's helpful. So the 301 redirect and the rel canonical is something you could definitely put on the same page. Well, not on the same page, but use it at the same time to let us know that this is really the URL that you want to have indexed. What is the process to notify Google of all of my off-page activities? Nothing. You don't need to do anything. We will, when we crawl the web, we'll try to figure out what's relevant and take that into account. So you don't really need to do anything specific to let us know about that. So like if there's a random link on a website someone is recommending your business, then we'll try to crawl that and pick that up. There's nothing that you need to do there to speed that up or to notify us. For Hindi sites, is it fine if we have the meta in English? Also, will using two languages affect the chances of inclusion in Google News? I can't speak for Google News, so I can't really help you with that. With regards to the meta, I assume this is the meta description or the title of the page. Ideally, you'd be doing that in the same language as the page, because that's something that we try to show in the search results as for the user. So ideally, when someone sees your search results in English and they click on the page, they get your page in English. And when they see the search results in Hindi and they click on your page, they land on the Hindi version of your page. So ideally, you'd have the meta description, the title, all of that match the page's content and the language of the page's content. We're converting a 30,000-page site to mobile-friendly, responsive multi-screen. Can you foresee any problems if we do conversion section by section rather than doing the entire site at once? Will the whole site have to be mobile to get the ranking benefit? You can do it page by page. You can do it section by section. It's totally up to you. The mobile-friendly label and the ranking change is on a per-page basis. So if there's some pages that we've recognized as being mobile-friendly, we'll take that into account. And the other pages we'll see as being, I guess, desktop-friendly and not take those into account for the mobile-friendly ranking change. On August 3rd and 4th, our traffic for Hindi site, particularly on product pages for mobile models, decreased suddenly as ranking dropped and started improving on the 5th again. Was there some kind of update from Google, or was it testing something? I don't know. I don't know. So we make changes all the time. We make hundreds of changes every year. So you will always see some amount of change in search, be it in the UI, be it in rankings, be it in crawling and indexing as well. So it's kind of normal to see some fluctuations there. So I don't have anything specific to say about e-commerce sites in Hindi on August 3rd and 4th.
Can I just ask a structured data question?
Sure.
So suppose a Wikipedia page that doesn't exist anymore, it's gone from the search results, but you guys are still showing the Wikipedia result for the specific brand or company. Why is that when the page is no longer there?
I don't know. I'd have to take a look at the example.
It's been removed from like 5 months ago, and it's kind of showing in the structured data here and there for certain rich snippets questions like why, or sorry, what is so and so, or what is whatever, and then there's no feedback. It doesn't give you the option to provide feedback in the structured data.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason for that? Why is the feedback removed from that kind of?
I don't know. I'd have to take a look at the example.
Okay.
That's something we can definitely pass on to the team to take a look at. In general, if we don't have that URL index, then we should drop it out of those different places.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's just take this as a chance to open it up for other questions from you all. What else is on your mind?
I think Christina wants to ask something.
There was something I posted way back up.
On Penguin?
Fairly. Well, I have a small site that got hacked 2 summers ago. And I hacked it pretty quickly, a day or two later. And it was a spam hack, a pharma spam hack. They created a subfolder on my non-www version, which they also made work just for that. Thank you. I removed all this. I fixed it all up. I cleaned it all up. Everything responds with 404, but I keep getting those stupid 404s. 2 years later, I still get them, and the link from indicates the same URL. So my issue is, can I hope for this to drop out or not? The problem being that the site is redirected to www, but the 404s themselves were on the non-www. I think that's probably making it stick around longer.
So these are pages that you removed, and they're just still showing up as crawl errors in Search Console?
Yeah, forever and ever.
Yeah, you can just ignore those.
Oh, I do, but,
I don't think you can make them go away.
I can't.
You can make them go away by, like, I don't know, unregistering your domain or something. But
I might end up doing that.
We have a big memory, and if we think there was content there before, then every, I don't know, half year or so, we'll retry that URL and say, oh, there's still nothing here. Drats. We'll try again in next year. So it's kind of our systems just trying to make sure that we're not missing anything from your website, because we think, oh, maybe there's something awesome there that we didn't.
I don't even have anything awesome there.
Well, like, how can you know without taking a look? So
I know.
So that's kind of our systems just retry these forever and ever. And I think it would probably help to make this a little bit clearer in the crawl error section in Search Console, that these are old URLs that we're just retrying, and maybe we'll find something. But
it's just that you keep caches of things 2 years later that still don't exist.
Well, maybe we think your website is awesome, and we just want to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Yeah, all the pharma spam. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I mean, Who knows what these bots think, right?
All right, never mind. It's just my little cross to bear, but
Yeah, that's something you can just ignore.
oh, I do. I do.
John,
When I have nothing else to do, and I go and I say, Marcus fixed.
So Marcus fixed only changes it in the UI. It doesn't change anything in our systems.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's my little placebo thing.
So, John, sorry, just to interrupt for a second. Does that mean that these historical URLs that obviously we see in Search Console for years and years afterwards, do they basically hold no equity whatsoever? They are literally just a Google bot repolling stuff just to see if it still exists, or is there any equity at all held by those links, good or bad?
I don't think there's any value in kind of cleaning that up. I mean, there are things that you could do. You could set up redirects to a different page. You could robot those URLs, but I don't think you'd see any value at all from kind of trying to get rid of those crawl errors.
Okay.
Even if I redirect it to some spammy site somewhere, let them go there. By that logic that keeps my old URL in the index, it's not going to work. I'll have the old one and the new one, and I'll be in bigger trouble.
I don't think that'll change anything.
I'll probably be in trouble.
No.
Well, if I had a spammy URL and I'm directing it to another spammy URL somewhere else, that means, ooh, I'm actually working for that spammy outfit.
I think we just totally ignore that. We would probably recognize the redirect and try to crawl that other URL. And if that other URL doesn't exist, then they would get a crawl error in their Search Console.
Well, I'll redirect to example.com.
I'm sure they have a lot of crawl errors already, but.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're out of time. I have the next Hangouts scheduled already. They're a bit in morning time, so probably suitable for those of you in Australia or Japan or India, at least the one on Friday. And I'll set up the next ones for Tuesday as well so that we can meet again.
John, did you have a chance to check my email regarding the Toronto thing, or not yet? Because I didn't receive.
I looked at that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So thank you all for joining, and maybe I'll see you again in one of the future Hangouts.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.